Hey, welcome back to the Rise and Shine show. I've got my friend and co-host Derek with me here today.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Derek. So I'm excited for today's conversation. I want to talk about the speeding up of time. Like, I think quite literally, where just everything's faster, louder, or heavier. It can feel very chaotic sometimes. And I feel if you're not resourced for it, it can feel straight up just too overwhelming and a lot. And actually, in some cases, it actually is. It just is too much. And it can feel negative. So, a while back, when I was reading The Medical Medium by Anthony Williams, he mentioned in the very beginning of the book something, and this was the first time I'd ever heard of this term. But since I see that this is a term that it shows up in different context, and I'm excited to talk about it. But the term he described, the time that we are in now, the time of humanity here on planet Earth today, is known as the quickening.
Mm.
So he's describing the quickening in the book as something, he's kind of like raising some awareness. This is the time of the quickening, maybe something we need to kind of be aware of. Um, there is a danger to it because it really is. It's like a jolt. It's like a infusion of energy. It's like it's a lot at once. It's the speeding up of everything, right? And so we can talk about that. But what feels exciting to me about this term is that it actually means coming alive and bringing to life and being made alive again or springing to life. And that changes the feelings of maybe like, "Oh, shit, time is speeding up and we're always already feeling like we're falling behind. Like, how are we going to keep up with time?" The answer is you're not. You're not trying to keep up with time. Like, that's actually what the harm the harm here is if you are trying to keep up, good freaking luck. But what if this speeding up isn't meant to, destroy us like it sometimes feels like it is, but actually to wake us up? And so that's what I want to talk about today, how this fast moving world is affecting us physically, emotionally, and spiritually, which is so fun to talk about, and how we can meet it consciously, not fearfully, how we can be present for it and open to it. And Derek is here with me for this one intentionally because he's the perfect guy for the conversation. So I don't know. Let's get
Oh,
into it.
yeah, you got my wheels turning, Sandy.
Derek.
You always bring the great topics. I think that my I spend some time thinking about this as well, right? My framing of it is I have heard you mention the quickening conceptually, from your reading, but I have noticed that we're just living in an age at which, and we've covered this a little bit in the past, but like we're living in a time where the speed of information is like radically different than it's ever been in history. Like I was just having a conversation with some of my staff the other day, and we are talking about um, how Karina and I were watching a show, and in the show, a gentleman was leaving from Ireland to go to the United States, and it showed it 2 months later, and he's like walking into the United States with his suitcase, and Karina looks at me and is like, "Wait, what? What's going on?" I'm like, "No, no, it took 2 months by ship back then, like that, because the show was set in like the 1800s or whatever." And she's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Like, think about it, right? These things are only going like maybe 6 miles an hour, and like think about the distance, and like that's how long it would take." And so she's like, "Gosh, what about a letter? You know, does it take the same amount of time to send a letter to?" And I go, "Yeah, there was no airplanes or anything." Like, and so I was bringing up this story with some of my team, and I was like, "So think about it. That means that a smoke signal was one of the fastest ways of communicating back then." You know what I mean? Like we always joke about smoke signals being this like archaic communication, but actually it was pretty quick compared to riding on horseback to wherever and
Yeah.
delivering the
Without
message or
change.
whatever, right? And so can put that in context with the fact that we right now have like we know exactly what's happening on the other side of the planet instantaneously all the time, and then we're communicating via text message instantaneously. Like, just I notice that I'll have a thought, and so that I don't forget to tell the person that I want to communicate it to, I'll send it right now, right in a second, and that's happening all day. And then we
Mhm.
have email, we have direct messaging and social media and all the things. And so it's like there's um a challenge, I think, for us as humans in adapting to this speed of information. Whereas it used to be that our thoughts always are happening quickly. I forget the number, but some kind of many, many thousands of thoughts a day, that we had to live with ourselves. But maybe the interactions around the communication were only a handful or 100 or whatever individuals. And maybe, that communication was verbal or written or whatever, but it was much slower. And so my first thought in hearing how you opened today was, it feels a little bit of a breakdown. It feels a little bit like the nervous system of humanity is maxed out, right? However, I would then caveat that with the idea that where there is breakdown tends to be the cusp of breakthrough, or as I've heard it said, the bigger the breakdown, the bigger the breakthrough, or just those things go together. And so on one hand, I have been living for a few years now in this like state of like, this is effed up. Like we are like, I don't know if anybody's supposed to live this way. And then I go, wait a second, this is like what it feels like before the breakthrough. In all, like, it just my experience in life. Like this is just that feeling. And so I've begun recently, maybe in the last couple months, to be super positive about things. Like there's some stuff coming. And instead of being scared of AI, I'm actually leaning into like the hope for its supporting humans becoming back to more human, because let the machines do the machines and let the humans do the humans. And right now, the humans have been trying to be the machines, in my opinion, in a lot of ways with the digital communication and all the things. So I don't know. I've just begun to turn the other cheek, as the scriptures say, to face the other concept, which is there's something positive happening. And I think what you opened with was laced with that idea that the quickening actually is like a rebirth or a breakthrough or whatever. Maybe you can tell us more about what you've read around that, but I'd love to hear your take on it. But that's where I want to position myself personally right now, and is to be in this optimistic, hopeful place around enough pressure, environmental pressure and stress usually spits out something pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I'm praying for. That's what I'm centering myself on every day, because otherwise I'm just a part of the problem. If I
Right.
don't wake myself up to some version of it's okay, this is just the what's happening now, and it doesn't have any meaning other than the meaning I give it, and just getting centered on, oh, there's something beautiful always. And if I really, really go deep on it internally, my message is that what I receive is everything is always happening for the good, even if it doesn't in the moment look like it. And that's like this long arc of time, or as we
Mhm.
call it, time. But I just mean that the source energy is always working for good. And
Yeah.
so I tending to just try to let go, less attachment to like what I think it should be like, or
Mhm.
letting go of like what I think is bad, show up every day with the intention to bring light and love into the world, and just kind of let go of the rest. And that's actually working really well for me. So I know that sounds a little Pollyanna, but it's really actually, I think it's coming from some real deep work that I've been doing and contemplating what it is you're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's like the bigger picture, and then the bigger picture, maybe all is well eventually after we, go through life, even maybe crash and burn, and but overall, the bigger picture is, that source is at work, and it is going to be all for a greater good of some kind, right? Is that kind of what you're saying? There's a bigger.
Yeah, yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that it may, like, sometimes I imagine a future. Like I tend to, and we've talked about this. I tend to not only stay super optimistic as often and as much as I can, but I also like to get kind of acquainted with what worst case scenario looks like. And it's kind of a business strategy and personal life. But when I think about the future of society, let's just say, I also will picture robot dominated, like totalitarian regime and government, total like what was the movie? Terminator, like that kind of thing, and we're all just suffering, and and I'll go, okay, that could happen.
Mhm.
And then it's funny because I look at my kids, and I look at my sons and I'm like, nah, that ain't happening. Like, there's some youth out there that are freaking like,
Yeah.
they are like next
Enlightened.
level. Like,
Yeah.
I look at my kids and I'm like, maybe it's a simplistic viewpoint, but I think every parent looks at this and goes, oh, my kids are the best of both parents, you know, and that's the way I feel. But there's also something else. They were born in, they're digital native. Like, they were born into this digital era. They understand things at a level that we have to work really hard to understand, and they have a different perspective. And I'm like, I just have hope. I think that there's a whole a number of generations, but a whole group of young people out there that are like a different level. And I believe that there is a coming together. I think there may be a polar, just like there always is, like there's going to be the dark force of control. But I think there's a lot more kids out there that are like, the system, we're not going to stand for this.
Hold on.
And I think we are starting to see the country, maybe it's still very polarized, but I'm starting to see a lot more conversation around why aren't we as people coming together? Like, let's drop the politics and just be like, hey, it's us versus that, the machine, whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, yeah, I kind of hold hope and I, around that, but I also just believe that more in what you were saying, that yes, I think that there's what can look dark in the moment actually is just part of what's necessary for the rebirth, the breakthrough. I mean, we are in the age of the Aquarius. I mean, we do know that there's a lot of ancient writing around this time and what's going on here, depending on what spiritual background you have or what kind of philosophy you follow. But it
Yeah.
almost all speaks to this time as
Yes.
being a very important one where there's a lot going on and we're in it. And so I'm kind of like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
You know, I suffer before I die.
Yeah.
That's the worst, right?
Yeah.
Or that there's everybody around me suffering before we all die. But like, I
Yeah.
just mean that, like, at the end of the day, we're all in that process in one way or another. And I
Yes.
think that suffering tends to be part of the suffering is a mindset.
Yeah.
And so how are you receiving that experience? And like that, it's all kind of part of it. So I think that I'm also very aware that I get what I look for, you know, and I get more of whatever I focus on. And so I'm
Yeah.
just like, I want to focus on the beauty and focus on the potential and focus on the possibility. And yeah, and I do just have faith that the fabric of the universe, the source energy, is essentially love. And so
Yeah.
sure, it looks sketchy sometimes, but I think that if we look back with a historical lens, we see that all of these heavy, bad things that happened actually created
Yes.
beautiful outcomes eventually, right?
I'm totally with you, and I it's like, where do our little itsy bitsy teeny weeny lives fall in this, right? And that's in just how you shared so beautifully, like where your position is and how you're going about it. And this is something that's just been on my mind kind of like endlessly right now, is like, where do we fit into this? Where do we fit into
Yeah.
this? Where, what is our role at this point? And so I see, like, yeah, we're obsessed with the politics, clearly. And yet there's this much bigger not situation, but yes, thing happening, a much bigger thing happening than the politics. Like, that's micro in perspective of, the history of humankind and
Uh-huh.
what will
Uh-huh.
happen. And so where do we stand? And, like, I want to, you know, be focused around the things that are most important to my heart, and, the integrity of the way I live my life. And, I'm a preacher of, I want us to feel as good as we can, as long as we can, right? Like, feel good more of the time, like, so we can have a better experience. So one of the things that was in the beginning of the medical medium book, but this being a book about health and healing, the message is kind of about, you know, to being aware of the fact that the pace is going to go like this, super speed. Your physical selves are not necessarily going to evolve as fast as this technology, as fast as the times. So, hey, heads up, like, if you want to adapt to this time and survive, because yeah, all is well, but also you might not make it through, because that's true. Like, things are gonna fall away, people are gonna fall away. Like, it's not all gonna survive the pressure of the time. It's not everything. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, that systems might not survive the pressure of the time, belief systems might not survive the pressure. The amount of, like, agony we're going through during political times of, fighting each other, fighting family members or whatever it is, like that might not survive this time, right? Because it's too much, right? Like the pain could be too much, the of hurting in your heart and feeling the suffering of the world, that could be too much. Like I don't know what our deal is, but we can't change until we've suffered. It just seems to be the way it is. It's like you don't truly change who you are until you've kind of gone through something like that important to make you change, right?
Here's what popped in my head. I want to say this, like, when has it never been this way? Like, as far as we know. And here's what's interesting. I used to think, well, no, there was this beautiful time. Let's just use America back on the plains with all the Native American tribes. And it was just this beautiful ecosystem before all of this insanity and war and everything. And I just read a segment of a book that was like, dude, they were freaking killing each other. It was insane. Like before we showed up, there was tribes just dominating the other smaller tribes and enslaving them, and like it was brutal, right? And so on one hand, we're sitting here going, "Oh my gosh, we're just getting all this insane news and media and politics and from around the world, and it's so heavy." But yeah, but nobody's riding into your town on horseback, like killing your family, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always been some version of this,
Mhm.
and I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm just talking about what I read. But my point is, if you look back in history, like we actually, in a lot of ways, it's different, but it isn't worse. In a lot of ways, it's better. I mean, there has the wars and the politics and the you know these kind of like ugly forms of
Yeah.
oppression and government have always been there. And in a lot of ways, it was far more brutal than it is now. Now, it's still occurring at that level in certain parts of the world. We know that, right? And I don't want to steer this conversation to like geopolitics again. I just want to reflect that, like, I know that that's heavy on people right now,
Right.
right? With all
Yeah.
that's going on. And yet I think what is happening for me at least, and I have a feeling that I'm not alone in this, is that people are having to be forced to go more inward and
Yeah.
like want to like, okay, what can we do? Eat more fruit and meditate. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Watch the
or
birds and the trees and the
yeah, like, you know
and
what I mean? Like
love
go
your
inward
neighbor.
and
Yeah. And
exactly
your
that stuff.
partner. So yeah, so being that this is in my mind, that's kind of where I'm going back to is like what's most important. It's like what feels like the essence of life right now. It feels like what so okay, we're adapting. The message is adapt. Adapt or die, basically, right? Adapt or die. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean for me? It means like what's most important, my relationships. The ones I'm having right now,
Amen.
right here, right now,
Amen.
with my clients, with my
With all you
family,
listening,
everyone here, yeah, our people, right, our community, these relationships, and then, paying attention, like slowing down. So this is one of the precautions, like don't forget to like look around. Like don't make fast decisions all the time. Like you're going to be pushed to make
mm,
these fast decisions and where are you going to get with these? Like can we slow down a little? Can we literally stop to smell the freaking roses? Can we like
I love it.
observe the things that are beautiful all around us like right now? Like that is going to what's going to be something that actually kind of almost like slows it down within it, right? And makes it more manageable for your nervous system. And I want to actually share a couple different references of the quickening. It's really fun and interesting. Okay, so I told you about the medical medium, Anthony William. He's calling it, from spirit, calls the era the quickening, describes it as a time of breathtaking advancements, heavy pressures on humankind, especially women, I'll say, because they're expected to be a lot and do a lot. So this is kind of just like a heads up. Pay attention. Is this you? Never before has civilization changed. So this is comparing kind of what you were talking about, but this is the difference of the quickening, right? Of things happening now. Never before has civilization changed at such a fast pace.
Mm,
We can
it's a
all
good
agree
point.
with that.
That's a good point.
Technology
Yep.
has revolutionized virtually everything about our lives. So we're trying to keep up with the pace of technology, yet we are humans. So we aren't robots, right? We are not, we're still humans. The bodies are not evolving as fast as the times are asking it to. So that's where we're like, you got to take care of you. You got to make sure you're checking in and making sure you're feeling okay. And what do you need? Are you resourced to be here in this time? And that's kind of what the name of the game is with all the health coaching stuff, right? To keep up with changing times, to survive, we must learn to adapt. Yeah. Oh, this the warns that if we don't redirect our course and support our health, future generations will suffer unnecessary illness. I totally believe this 100%. Back to going kind of more within, I think anything that was like jumping on bandwagons or following the masses is probably, I don't think your best bet. Honestly, like any big old mass, like following that and letting that lead you, I'd say bad idea.
Good call there. Love that.
A bad idea. Okay, and this one's fun, Derek. Biblical, spiritual take on the quickening.
Mm.
So the next thing, because one thing leads to the next, isn't this how it goes? You get curious. It lit something up for me, and then it's like, huh, I wonder what this means about this. And then I heard it again, because then now I hadn't heard the word, and now I heard it again in some other reading, some other spiritual thing. I was like, hey, they just talked about the quickening. Then I looked into the book of Revelations. It was in there, by the way. Crazy. Quickening, to make alive, to revive. This is a biblical spiritual aspect. To make alive, revive, awaken. And this is quoted. This is hilarious. I'm quoting out of the Bible, so just excuse me because I don't think I've ever done this before. I'm nothing against it. I just haven't done it before. For as the Father riseth up the dead, the quickeneth. Thanks, I can't say that. Quickeneth them. So as he rose,
Wickedness them.
yes, yes. This is John 5. I don't know, 2:1. Did I say that right? I'm not sure. Representing moving from spiritual death to life. This is about awakening the spirit. It's a spiritual awakening. This is the part that excites me. This is the time of this spiritual awakening. And it's so fun because at the beginning of the pandemic, during the Rise and Shine show, it just like I started calling it, this is the Great Awakening. This is a Great Awakening. The Great Interruption, I was calling it, and to the Great Awakening. This is the freaking Great Awakening, people.
Yeah.
Awakening the spirit. In metaphysical teachings, quickening is a surge of divine energy, awakening consciousness. So this is how they're talking about it. In pregnancy, they call the quickening is when a pregnant mother first feels the baby move. Weeks around 16 to 20. That first evidence of life, it's when everything rushes to bring to life. They call it the quickening. So, so the quickening, both pressure and invitation, world speeding up physically while calling us to slow down spiritually, to be present and awaken to it. A time to adapt versus abandoning ourselves and to come fully alive. So what opportunity in this freaking nutcase chaos world, right?
You that was awesome. Like that was some great insight there. I love how you tied that all together. That was fantastic. I will share one little note there on the book of Revelation. I spent most of my life assuming that that was, like many people who spend their time in the Bible, assuming that that was a book that spoke about the quote unquote end times. It was like death and destruction. However, it was also about the rapture of the believers and things like this. And it always seemed like chaotic and gnarly. And I literally read that over and over and over because I wanted to understand what I felt like was the time that was likely that my life was going to be in. And I don't know where I got that, but whatever. And then I don't know, maybe about 15 years ago, through my more Eastern studies, reading more of the, Vedantic, and, kind of Hindu, ancient yogic scripture and trying to piece things together, it became very, very clear that there's also a metaphor in the book of Revelation that is the seven seals
Mm-hmm.
are the chakras. And that if you read that book with a fresh set of eyes on it being a metaphor for the, basically, it's a story and a narrative that is the metaphor for your own enlightenment, the process of becoming enlightened in the yogic tradition or the Buddhist tradition. and the seven sacred seals and all that stuff are the chakras. And if you read it through that lens, all of a sudden you go, oh, totally different perspective,
Mhm.
right? I'm not saying that one is which one it is or not, or maybe it's both at the same time, which I think very well could be true. I do find that there are these deeper meanings that are also very, you can read the metaphorical way and see the deeper meaning behind things in scripture, and you can also see it in its actual, literal kind of form as well, which you were talking about. Like this is, but I think that they both coincide. Like this rebirth individually, are we being kind of pressured into having to go inward and having to seek our own source of stable and happy, and as opposed to looking for it from the world or you know outside sources? Is humanity actually being awakened at this point? I could argue for that, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a massive awakening occurring. I
Yeah.
think what's really happening, from the way I see it, is everybody's eyes are being opened to
Yeah.
a broken system of control, to a lack of empathy and compassion for humans, that we have these fictional lines drawn on maps that say it's us versus you. And I think, along with this, the deleterious effects of the speed of information that we talked about early in the show, there's also this beautiful thing, which is being able to connect with others at distance and in real time, that shows us the humanity of others, right? As opposed to them, that's them way over there,
Right.
and this is us. I think, what does it look like for more of us to start to talk about the other side of this, which is, let's stop focusing on what's wrong, because we're just going to get more of that, and start focusing on what's right or what's possible, what we imagine the beauty could be from all of it, and communicate that, show up that way every day. Like I've recently, this is going to sound super crappy if you if you don't, if it doesn't land right. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
say it, but I've been like partying lately, and I don't mean like
Yeah.
actual partying. I mean I'm like partying in life, because I'm like, I feel like it's almost like F it, like it's all blown up, it's all screwed up, and okay, cool. That means that, like, I don't know. It almost just feels like I'm just have
Can't
one of those
control this.
personalities where, like, yeah, when stuff gets all screwed up, I'm like, all right, fuck it. Like, I'm, okay, there goes all the rules. And like, who cares? Like, let's just go, let's make it fun. If none of this, I'm losing my appetite for like
I'll be finding you at the end of times, by the way.
what's that?
We'll be looking for Derek at the end of times when we're like, "Oh, Derek's gonna be partying. Let's go find Derek."
Let's go over there. Yeah. No,
Derek.
I just mean that, like, it's helping me let go of the attachment to outcomes. It's helping me let go of the mindset of accumulation of material things, and just kind of going, it's all chaos and it's all beauty all at the same time. And maybe I don't have to be so stressed. Like, I think we tend to internalize, and I think it's intentionally happening through like media sources, that they want us to internalize like what we should be doing to change things.
Yeah.
And we can't change what the government's doing. We really can't. We can't change the what's happening on the other side of the planet. All we can do is change how we're showing up for each other
Yeah.
today, right now. And I guess that's what I'm talking about. Is I'm kind of doubling down on something I think I was talking about on the last show, but just the idea that, like, when I say I'm partying, I'm more just like, dude, I get to choose how I'm showing up today, and I'm just going, screw it. I'm going to show up like everything's awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously I want to be present to other people's struggle and suffering, right? But so I'm not saying that. And that's what I meant when I was like, this could land really bad. I'm not saying like not to have the awareness and the compassion for the suffering that's occurring. I'm just saying I get to choose not to have, like, how much good am I going to do for you if I'm wearing the crap that I think I understand that's being
Right.
piped into my head from, like, the screens,
Totally.
versus waking up and going, I'm alive. This is awesome. This is great. Like, what do I have to lose? Like, this is all, it's like kind of almost like, if it's all falling apart, what do we have to lose? Let's just show up full on. Like, yeah. And then maybe lace in there the idea that you just brought up, that like we're on the cusp of this massive breakthrough, this awakening. It feels uncomfortable. It's like, hey, and how did you feel? Because I've never been pregnant, but how did you feel knowing like all of the I've witnessed it, but like all of the struggle and challenge of like being pregnant, where you're like, oh, this is rough, but there's a part of you that's like, and I get to bring life into this world,
Right.
and I'm excited because I get to meet my child, like that I think that maybe that would be a good way to think of this is like you brought up the somewhere in the writing talking about this being pregnant and that feeling. And like, I think that that's pretty uncomfortable most of the time. But I think that my experience has been watching women be also at the same time super excited about the idea that they are bringing life into the world and that they get to meet their child. And I don't know, maybe that's the vibe that it feels like right now for me. Like maybe I'm doing the male version of it. Like I'm partying while my wife is pregnant
Yeah.
because I know that a kid's coming and I'm all excited and I'm like, yes,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's, there's evidence of these cycles everywhere you look in nature, right? And you can't possibly keep the baby in your inside. You can't. It's like possible. So I remember at the end of my pregnancy, I would think about giving birth. That's a very terrifying idea for
scary.
most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd get nervous about it. I'd get anxious about it, and oh my god, no, I'm not ready for that. But you get to the end and you can't possibly carry this thing in around anymore, and you're just like so over it, and if you wouldn't, I mean, you would blow up. I mean, you can't, it's impossible to not change the situation. You have to do something to bring this damn thing to life, like to bring it home, so you get to the end and you're like, I don't care what I have to go through to get to the other side of this at this point, because I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so over this with it being so full of baby that I will go through anything. So now all of a sudden, this transformation that was at one point seeming so terrifying, so scary, you're inviting. You're like, come on, bring it any day now. Like, I'm ready. I don't care what I'm going to go through this. I mean, and that is where we're at. That.
Dude, Sandy, are we at late stage pregnancy right now? Like in that metaphor, are
Yeah.
we like we're kind of like, okay, I need to get this out. Like I don't care. I need to be done with this. And is that where we're at right now?
I think we're not there yet, that we're at the time of things speeding up.
We don't get to have the baby?
We're not giving birth in our time. I don't think so.
Oh,
Yeah. We're going to give birth to a lot of things.
because if I look at like, okay, let's just use AI as like a good indicator. There was a thing in technology advancement called Moore's law, and I'm not gonna remember exactly what the time frame was, but basically the capacity of technology doubled every, I forget what Moore said, but his prediction turned out to be very true for a long time until a kind of this more supercomputing AI based stuff came along. And it's like, it's not just like 10 times faster than what Moore's law was that was accurate for like 30 years. It's like compounding. It's getting faster and faster every day.
Yeah.
And so if AI, and I do think AI has a big play in this whole concept that we're talking about here, I can't imagine that it's not going to be absolutely different world than we can even consider right now
Yeah.
in like 5, 10 years.
Yeah. I hear you.
Now, is that just the beginning of the next phase? I don't know, right? Maybe there is more scriptural kind of evidence to like it isn't our lifetime. I think it is. And I think that it's going to happen because it's compounding how quick things are happening. I think it actually, what seems like far away is actually going to, or far out there is going to be happening sooner than we think.
Yeah. Okay. That I could get behind that.
That said, Sandy, I think that almost every generation preceding us thought the same thing. So that I can make that back to your argument, or I could say also that I think everybody thought when you were in the middle of World War II, you're like, this is the end of world, this is the end of the world. Like this is the like this is the quickening. We're all this global suffering and famine and death and destruction, and like it's going to be a breakthrough. And so I think that everybody has thought that. And so to your point, maybe it's true that there is a version of it occurring for every generation or every whatever 100 years or 50 years or whatever.
Your younger self versus your older self, right? It's like when you were 25, I was pretty sure I had it all figured out. And when I was 35, I was definitely had it all figured. No, now I have it figured. Now I know it all. And then, now you're 45 and I'm like, oh yeah, I got it figured out. And or you're like, no, I actually don't have anything figured out. That's actually
Wait till 50 because I think 50 is the breakthrough where you realize you have nothing figured out.
okay. Then you just kind of,
You go back to being a kid.
yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm partying.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So yeah, that uncomfortable that happens during change is real, but staying the same is not an option. And actually staying the same is more of a death, in my opinion. I don't I right, if you're not living, you're actually dying as far as I'm concerned. But how do we cope? How and this has been up on my mind. How do we cope with this time? How do we you've shared some really nice things about perspective and just taking on a really positive outlook. I think that's important. And also, like, are we numbing out? Are we medicating? Are we distracting? Are we scrolling relentlessly? Like, we all have our different ways of coping with stress and with pressure and with but what if we're just saying here, like, hey, we're all feeling it, guys, we're all feeling it, and let's, like, accept that, and maybe just, like, how about it's going to be okay? Like, we're kind of saying it's going to be okay, so you might feel it. Let's feel it together, and let's bring on this awakening more as a cell shift, mind, body, spirit, soul, adapting to our higher truth. Like, let that be open to that. And we can't be open to that if we're like this and just like plugged in. I'm like this, holding my phone up to my face in case you can't see me, but we're
Can I bring in something? I was just while you're talking, I'm going, okay, what are we actually? What is the message today around what we can do in a simple way? And I want to throw in there some my favorite coaching that I ever got from you, which is
I love it.
using feeling good or feel good as like a guide. And I'm probably screwing up how you like present it to me, but that has like been
Same.
fundamentally one of the greatest bits of information anybody ever gave me. And it's so simple, which is just what makes you feel good. Follow that. Like, and if you really dig into that, you realize that like helping others feels good. Working hard can feel good. Being productive can feel good. Resting can feel good. Nourishing body can
But
feel
you're
good.
not just
Going in
saying,
X.
like, smoke a joint, feel good, or like
No.
eat a cake, feel.
Well, yeah. And I mean, okay, let's play that out. Right. And I'm an addict in recovery, so I can talk about this. So does it feel good when you're making the choice to use a substance? I think it doesn't actually feel good. I think deep down, you're sad. And deep down, you're trying to fix something with an external exogenous chemical that maybe you trick yourself into thinking makes you feel good temporarily. However, you know that you don't feel good going into it. And that's why you're choosing to do it. And then you know it's not going to feel good after. And so, does it really feel good at that deep, deep heart center level? I don't think it does. And I think I can look back over my career of substance abuse and really be clear that no, even when I was in a great mood and thought it was a fun thing to do, deep down it hurt. It was sad. There was something sad about it. And so I think when I look at what you said about follow feel good as a guide, I think like it feels good for me to go through the toughest challenge. Like I actually have, then maybe that's a little bit of why I'm saying that I'm like quote unquote like partying. And obviously, I'm sober, so I don't mean like that kind of partying. I mean like I'm just like a one man party rolling through my life right now.
Yeah.
And it's partially because I'm recognizing that there's massively challenging things showing up in my life and my business and whatever. And I'm still kind of just like going, oh, but it feels good to figure this out, or it feels good to recognize that this is just what's happening right now. And I don't need to frame it a way that's like victim and this is terrible and how could this happen? I'm instead just going, okay, this came up. Like, what do we do? And so I'm noticing that like in every part of my life, if I use that idea of does this feel good or what would feel good right now, even like when I get like somebody that normally I might like react in a negative like response in conversation, like where I'm pissed off, let's just say, I'm catching myself going, that wouldn't really feel good. Like there's a part of me that wants to tell them off or
Yeah.
respond in like a sharp way. And I right away go, that doesn't feel good. What feels good is going, hey, I hear you that you're
Yeah.
upset, or hey, I see that this is a challenging conversation.
You're coming from a higher place versus that quick fix of feel good, like, oh, I'm gonna get my point across. And it's like,
It feels like I'm getting more in touch with
mm-hmm,
what feels good to my soul.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that doesn't mean what feels good right in that quick second. It's what really feels good is compassion. What really feels good is not letting all of the BS in the media influence how I show up with you today,
Yeah.
right? Like that feels good. And so that would be maybe what I would interject into this whole conversation
Yeah.
is like, what are we doing? And I would say, are we addicted to something that doesn't feel good? Like let's use the addict behavior that I
Yeah.
just mentioned. Are we addicted to the negative influence and information that we're seeing in media, in on our screens, or that we focus on? Are we addicted to that because it gives us a little quick dopamine hit, but does it really feel good? Or does actually like being with somebody, actually there with them, present with them as an individual, does that feel good? Does it feel good to like speak truth from love to your family members? Like,
Yeah.
does that feel good?
I think that what you're saying people can relate with. I know I can relate with. And I remember though there being a time where I couldn't relate as much because I hadn't had as much experience feeling fully in my higher power, like in myself, like feeling in my power, meaning like my baseline was a lower baseline where the quick fixes of life, getting the last word in, vegging out, just not being really present, being whatever, moody, using the food, using the nothing wrong with it. We're all here on planet Earth and it's not the easiest place to be on sometimes. And we're all got our ways of getting through it. And sometimes like that's as good as you can do and that's the best you can freaking do. And I know when I was in that place, that was as good as I could do. So I think like the baseline though from there was that, these little things was as good as it felt. Those little things that was my good feeling. So feeling good to me was my 5 o'clock. It's time to have my stuff and whatever. And I just use that because that's the thing that,
Gin and tonic?
yeah, like what a margarita or like a white wine or whatever. And I just use that one because it's just like my story and what I relate with most
Yeah.
is just like that. I really looked forward to it, right? Like the second you were done with the day or through the stress or the time or the driving everybody around, it was like, yes. And I think that so if you were talking to me then right now, it would be a little more challenging to know what felt good
Uh,
when that was my baseline, if you know what I'm saying.
it's a good point. It's a really good point. I think
So
I there's something I've been telling my kids for a few years now as they become young men, and it actually works really well in all areas of life for me. And I'll just throw it out there. I don't know if it'll help others, but the idea that we're often faced with choices that are binary, it's either this or that. And it could be like either I have that drink at 5 o'clock or I don't, right? You can boil most things down to an A or B. And what I've been telling my kids is when you're faced with a decision, it's almost always true that the more difficult decision is the right one. And so
I hate that.
it's what I know, right? And then from that, it's almost always true that the harder decision has a more fulfilling outcome
Yeah.
and tends to feel good. For me, I've been kind of like playing this out
Hmm.
daily for myself, just like the easier decision is to snap back at that person. The harder decision is to be present and not, which then leads to feeling good,
Yep.
that I didn't, or less mess to clean up, or whatever, right? And so the harder decision
Yeah.
typically takes more work, more thought,
Yeah.
and yet it typically creates a smoother path forward, which
Yeah.
feels good.
100.
So I don't know.
No,
I'm
it's like
just giving
that's
like
so valid.
armchair advice over here, but like, but I'm just sharing what works for me. I'm a simple dude. At the end of the day, I need things to be pretty simple, and I need to give myself tools that are simple to apply that can lead to more sophisticated, good outcomes. And that works for me.
What you're saying it has to do with integrity again. And again, I have said this and will be the first to admit that there's been a big portion of my time that I would be the first one to say I had zero integrity.
Mm,
Like I remember being like, what does integrity actually mean? And learning what it actually meant and being very aware of like this is like a young version of myself that was like a teenager maybe. And I thought, I do not have that, like straight up.
Can
I
you
don't
tell
have
me
that.
what integrity means to you?
Well, it's being in line with your truth. It's acting as though you are feeling and speaking and all that lining up. It's being in alignment with what is most true to you.
I often boil it down to you can start with doing what you say you're going to do. Like that's an example of integrity. But then I think to your point, it's also deeper in that it's doing what you say to yourself or what you
Yeah.
believe to be true,
Yeah.
right? And the definition is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness.
Right.
Subjective, right? But I think it's at least just being, to your point, true to yourself. Am I doing what I believe? Am
Yeah.
I showing up in the way that, like, if I know that drinking isn't good for me, am I in my integrity if I drink? No. And that's what I mean about that not actually being feeling good, you know? I
Yeah.
think integrity feels really good. Dude, you brought up, that's a really good thing you brought up. Integrity feels really good, even though it's not easy.
No, and it's like I can't be mad at my younger self. Yeah, I didn't know what integrity truly felt like until I knew myself better to then be able to know this is what I believe and feel for myself. This is my truth. This is what's real for me. You don't know it until you're it and living it, I think.
What if that's a good question for the audience is like, where in your life can you notice that you're out of your integrity?
Hmm.
And what would it look like to get back into integrity? And is that a simple decision of the harder decision to make,
Yeah.
being maybe the right one? And then does that lead to feeling good? And maybe we can all like spend some time in that practice.
Yeah.
It's pretty
It's a good
easy
one.
to test.
Hey there, sorry for the interruption. Before we go on, I just want to pause to let you know this next part of the conversation, it might sound a little bit like a detour, and but stay with me because it actually does tie into what we've been talking about integrity and discernment and living in alignment. You living in alignment, me living in alignment, we all living in alignment with our inner truths and what feels good to us as a unique individuals. So, which is a big part of the quickening time we're in. It's, getting back to what is really true and real for you. And so Derek and I start talking about food and animals and what it means to live true to your unique individual values. It's one of those just moments that's just a real honest conversation. And I know a lot of people will see it differently in different ways. So, yeah, it is a little shift in the conversation, but it's still a part of the bigger picture. Okay. So enjoy. Let's get back to it. Yeah. This has been the struggle, and the reward lately has been one being, as you've known a little bit about Derek, but has been, and I'm not going to like get into this really, but this is one of the biggest lessons right now, and integrity has been my relationship with animal products right now. And it's been a tough one. It really is not easy, especially knowing like Thanksgiving is coming around. I might think like she's obviously like a vegan girl or whatever, but like I've loved animal products my whole life and every meal loved them and all the things. But then going back to my integrity, so lately I don't call myself a vegan. I'm not claiming to be anything. There's just been some awareness that has been brought to my attention that I can't ignore. And then so now I'm like, well, could I sometimes? Well, maybe. I don't know. What if I do less? Yes, less would make impact. I feel good about the fact that less would make impact on the things that are important to me, right? So I'm seeing that. But then it's like okay, yeah, I could forget about it for a minute and then it goes back to my integrity. So this is the hard part. This is the hard part. Like, I don't not like it. I like it a lot. Like, it's delicious and it all looks great. And there's a bunch of like memories wrapped around certain meals and what that means and like the vibe I want to create for the family to relive this feeling. And right, there's so much wrapped around like your diet. But it's the hard part for me right now is like the integrity piece. It's not hard because integrity has is so important to me nowadays, and not because I'm trying to live in integrity, it's because the way it feels, like I have to feel good, like I'm being true to me. And, when I ask the question, like, is this worth this? And the truth is there. And if I could lie, I could just lie to myself and I could say, I don't care. No big deal. And the
Can
fact is I do. So I can't do that.
but I spent a long period of my life in that feeling out of my integrity by consuming animal products because I felt it hurt for me to think that some another life was being taken for my nourishment,
Hmm.
and that it was a big part of it was like the idea that like I didn't want to be harming living things. And I had to go through a lot of work to get to a point now where I have come full circle to where I sit now is that there's a distinction between unconscious consumption of another being that lived a life and died so that you could be nourished
Yeah.
versus being consciously aware in honor and gratitude for that being's life and the acknowledgement that it was here to serve a purpose just like we are here to serve a purpose. We could make the argument that this world is eating us as well, right? And I think for me, and again, I'm not trying to put my perspective on anybody else. I'm just sharing a slightly different perspective. I got a lot of awareness out of moving into a place where I could have integrity around an honorable, maybe reverent partaking of the
Yeah.
eating of flesh and knowing that that flesh was going to be eaten by something. And if I go out of my way to source that in the ways that feel good for me,
Yeah.
that meat, if I go out of my way to give a thanks and a prayer to that and honor of that life and that and then what that led me to over time was the understanding that all life is just life. It's all just one thing. We are all just one thing. And life is eating life and life is giving birth to life, always never ending, right? And it's a transference of energy. Do I like the idea of animals suffering purely for the purpose of being harvested for the overconsumption of humans? Nope, not at all, right? But can I move into a place that's where I believe that if I'm fully nourished and at my peak, can I actually compensate for that, let's say, death of that animal in
Hmm.
a way at which I'm bringing more love and light into the world through that energy transference? I guess that's getting really esoteric, but that's the way I'm living my life now, where I'm looking at where is there excess versus where is there nourishment, where is there,
Uh-huh.
and trying to find that integrity around it. But I think that it's individual, obviously, but I do think, like many things, it's a partly about how you're framing things,
Well, I
and where you're coming from it. Because what I didn't want to do, I felt like I was getting sick from the guilt that I was associating to where I kept getting more and more limited in what I felt comfortable consuming,
because you're
which
not
then led me to like, so
yeah.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, and I
yeah.
I think like you're saying, and I know now we're talking about this, but it is
You're like, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, yeah, we
well,
are.
I know it's like a episode or 10 all in its own, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
like this because it really is, because there's that much around this and on this, and there's literally like vegan and carnivore wars going on, it's like a
Oh, is there?
oh,
That's insane.
100%. I really like everyone hates the vegans. It's just the way it goes. So
Yeah, but the vegans are very self-righteous about their position.
maybe, I don't know, are they? Okay, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that I'm not saying that that's what I think. I'm saying that I think that that's the paradigm is that they are basically what it is I don't think the other side, the carnivore or whatever, are judging people for not being that. I think what they're saying is this look into this. There might be some health benefits here. Whereas I think where the vegan paradigm lives most broadly speaking is in a judgment of anybody else that's not vegan as doing it wrong.
Well, and from what I understand about vegans, being that I can relate with them more so than before, is that they care a lot and they have a huge heart for the problem and they see it and they're
Yep.
not seeing it. They see a lot of suffering going on and they see the problem as being the amount of consumption of animal products. So it's hard not to be like, please stop, because if you stop, then this stops. Like it is, I've been in that feeling. I've felt that, like, desperateness of, like, gosh, if everyone knew, if you only had any idea of what is happening in order for this to happen, I
Yeah.
don't think you would choose it. I don't think you would see this little face and this life and the way it has to come into the planet and the way that it is brought up in order for it to end up on your plate, and choose that. I don't think most people would, but to what you're saying, it is what we're really talking about here is back to integrity. This is about you feeling good about the way you're living, what you're doing, the choices you're making, and how much that speaks to what's inside of you, what's in your heart. So if your perspective is putting it the way that and yeah, and I think like if more people thought the way you were thinking, that would be an improvement. I do. I think versus like being completely oblivious, consuming because that's all we've always done. And of course we're going to eat that. And of course we're going to have that. And it's all like not right. It's like a lot of consumption.
Well, it changes things too. If you go hang out with the cows, go hang out with the cows, feed them by hand, and hug them and love them, knowing that those are the cows that someday will be on your plate from that ranch, which I've done, right, and do. It changes things. I also think that it changes things if, let's just say, you eat fish, go catch some fish, have the experience of that animal, its life ending before your eyes, knowing that you're going to eat it.
Mhm.
But be aware of what's occurring. And I'm not saying that I'm not taking a position on what's right
Right.
or wrong because I've lived both sides of this
Yeah.
completely, right?
Mhm.
I'm just saying that there is a disconnect. And that's what I think you're speaking to. The
Yeah.
real problem is that we go to the store and buy packaged, processed, factory farmed stuff that we don't even need. We probably could, tend to like, we could probably use to not eat so much. And we're just unconsciously buying and consuming, not having the connection to where that came from.
Yeah.
The same way that when you go pick an apple off a tree and you eat it, it tastes a lot better than the apple you bought in the
Yeah.
store.
Mhm.
Like, I think that there's something that we're talking about here that's deeper, that is a disconnect
Yeah.
that I think is, I could argue, has been intentional, that we are disconnected from our source
For sure.
of nutrition and life.
Because if we
And as we get more connected to
our
it,
choices would
we
be
understand the cycle of that life and death and consumption and whatever, and what is appropriate and what is not, what feels good, what doesn't. And that was seasonal, it was time of
yeah.
life, it was all of those things. And we're just disconnected.
Same as like, and we'll move on from this. And actually, let's promise to do an episode on this. And then,
I'm in.
but like, it's the same as if you were to buy the grapes from the store and they look good. All right, cool. Grapes, good. Take them. And then versus go to the farm, pick some grapes. But then, wait, hold on. Before you pick those, let me just dip them in loads of chemicals. Okay, now pick them. You can have them now.
Yeah,
Like the same thing, right? There's the disconnect. Like if we knew that if that was in our face, we were part of that. We're involved in that process, we might have something to say about that. Of course, there's disconnect, and I think even in like I think it's in Switzerland, they're putting on the packages of meat products.
100%. Yep.
They're putting on there like the animals suffered for this product, basically. Like not maybe in those words, but they're kind of being more transparent about it, and that would be really interesting, right? To know like what happened in order for you to get this in your hands, whether like, okay, so if we're gonna wrap this show up, it's going back to, the quickening. As yes, there is some awareness that would be helpful. Like it's a great time to pick your head up and pay attention and open your eyes and wake up a little and be aware that there is some changes going on and like being intentional and choosing and getting to be like, hey, I'm choosing to be in this way during this time. Like I'm growing with it, I'm going with it, I'm evolving, using our discernment, I think is a very powerful tool for right now, this time. Maybe one of the most powerful tools you could possibly
It's an incredibly important topic right now.
the quickening as hope, a surge of life trying to move through us right now. Are you in a place to surrender to that to some point at the same time being intentional and heart focused? And then yeah, what matters most? What matters most to you right now in your relationships, your love? these simple moments. Gratitude, we know gratitude, we know that, but it's really actually applying that and being appreciative of anything around you that is available to be appreciated, right? And let that lead you and let that help you through this time and soothe you into a place where, you can give birth, because I know that for birth, you like relax into it. And the more you hold tight, the harder it is to actually, I know that's really descriptive, but I'm giving you a play by play of what birth is like. The more you tighten up, it's like you can't let go. And that's obvious, but that's what we're talking about when we're slowing down enough and to really reconnect to what's real so it can be not so hard and stressful.
That was actually what showed up in my meditation this morning was the idea of surrendering and letting go, just letting go of holding so tight
Yeah.
to everything, you know? I think you're right. In this time, it's like that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah, I wanna do
Let go a
another,
little
like,
bit.
a part 2 in a way, but I wanna focus on, the health aspect of the quickening because it's something that's been really valuable to me, and I wanna help, everybody feel, like, geared up, because that's kinda what it's about. It's about a way of, like, protecting your physical self, because I'm all about, getting to be in these bodies, feeling as good as we can, living longer, feeling better more of the time, and, that's something we can do. We can kinda protect ourselves from the, like, intensity of the time so that we're in a better position to kinda move through this, right? So I'm going to do a little closing and we will say goodbye. So the quickening isn't something to fear, I'm going to say. It's life itself just speeding up and trying to get our attention, we'll say. Asking us to evolve, to wake up, to come alive, so we can slow down, breathe, and notice the beauty around us. Let the surge move through you, even if it's uncomfortable, because what's on the other side of that discomfort is what's real, and it's soul alignment itself. It's how we truly transform. Anything you want to add to that?
Oh, I think you said that beautifully. I think your intention for the show today was beautiful. I think that I would just add that really the key to all of it is just bring awareness to back to your center. And I know that sounds a little bit like hippy dippy, but the idea just being like, where am I right now in all of this and what's true to me? And you talked about integrity and we talked about discernment a little bit there. Like, yeah, I think that that's the parting words is just like go back in, like go back to you. Who are you really? What is and like let go of what you think all this means and just where are you right now? And
Mhm.
what's that integrity feel like for you?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Derek, for being with me here in this, and
Thank you so much for having me.
everyone for being here. I just want to send lots of love to you all, and thanks for listening, and bye for now. Hey there.